Hi, guys. Welcome back to episode 58 of the Strength of America podcast. The mouth's not working too well this year. All right. We're talking about sports specialization, the pros and cons. Is it good? Is it beneficial? We see a lot of these kids going through one sport year round. Some still multi-sport. There's some pros and cons to both. We want to break those down for you, talk about some of the articles, and we'll have some things for you as well. So if you have one that's involved in one year round, want to hear about some of the things going on with it, things you can do to help your athletes, please stay tuned, like, subscribe, get ready for episode 58 of the Strength of America podcast.
The Strength of America podcast.
All right, welcome back. Second episode of the year. Today we want to talk about, there have been a few articles that have been great, really putting out some good things, but then also been some information that should have been in those articles that wasn't. And I think one of the big dramatic things that people talk about right now with specializing in one sport is, unfortunately, we're seeing far too many overuse injuries. And I understand on one hand about the parents who say, we've got to specialize. They want to get them out there. They've got that coach that unless they're really doing that in the off season, they're not going to get on the high school team. So you're kind of stuck in between it, or you're worried about that scholarship and, all these things happening. And I think the big part for me and with Strength of America and what we've done for so many years is trying to keep these kids healthy. And I know I got on with Bobby early on and my daughter Cassie. It's one of my things. Of course, they didn't have much choice in it. If they were going to do a sport, they were going to train with me because I understood that there are overuse injuries. And the kids didn't specialize early on, but Cassie, for example, was gymnast and dance and did both those year round. But we saw a lot of injuries with those gymnasts, the wrists, the spine, the hips, problems that were going on. Our dancers, same thing with ankles and knees and hips. So we need to look at, with your strength coach that you're working with, hopefully, is taking a look at your sports that you're involved in and setting up a program that's well-rounded for that and understanding certain sports are predisposed to injury. Later on, these kids, we understand, start dropping into it. We really have recommended for years, go into multi-sport, do more sports. You're well-rounded. Because if you're really focused on trying to get that scholarship and you think you have to do that, take a look and look at some of the interviews with some of the pros out there. We have very few find anybody that specialized in one sport. Those baseball players, the basketball, the football, they did multi-sports. They were well-rounded. They were able to handle the stress, and they went through and did some conditioning to get them up to that point. So why all of a sudden we think we have to make sure our 8-year-old plays baseball year-round all the way through to get them ready for our college and pros, to me is kind of insane. But how about you, Bobby, do you see kids over at your school at Chandler Prep that are specializing in one sport, or they do multi-sport? Where are you seeing it over your group?
I don't see as much at Chandler Prep. I mean, you do see some people in basketball and volleyball and stuff of that nature. I think some of the kids are just finding out. They're finding some common types of scenarios where some of these kids who are doing them are starting to have a little more injuries, a little more nagging injuries, or they're getting around to their school season and they're just not they're not energetic, they're not passionate about it. So I think I'm starting to have some kids that are starting to realize that. They're still not maybe following it to a T, but at least some awareness is popping up about it. But I think of one kid that I currently have from boys basketball right now, and he has to, it almost reminds me of what you say in the morning, that until you get in the hot shower, you feel like the Tin Man. And I have this kid who's like a sophomore, junior, and his knees are just so banged up. He's got all this tape. He's running like the Tin Man in the early morning workout. And he's trying to do all these things, and he's just in pain. Yep. And I said, "Are you going to take a break after your season?" He says, "No." I said, "So do you just want to keep limping around like that, or you're going to have to take a break? Yeah. Your body just can't go through that stress. You're going to have to take the time to rebuild it." And thankfully, the wrestling, it's not a sport where it's year round. There's one main season, and there's a break, and there's another season, but it's super laid back. And if you want to go. Otherwise, the focus was more so on you just getting stronger and building yourself up for the following season and being healthy. And it's not like that with all these sports, but then again, it's part of it. The weather is so nice here that people can do sports year round. And, there's coaches who found out that they could monetize and make money by doing training when their season isn't. And kudos to them. It's nothing bad, but I think you need to have the intentions of the kid, the best intentions of the kid, rather than worrying about your checkbook. And so that's a tough thing. Now, if you're going to train year round, that's fine, but you just need to monitor things really well. And you need to make sure that they're doing a strength and conditioning program, because let's say baseball and volleyball, for example, all that forward motion of the arm and the velocities that come with it. And, the kids just create crazy imbalances right to left. Structurally, they start to change, super weak in the back, and injuries come about. And these kids are just battling injuries their whole high school career instead of being healthy. And by the time they get to their regular sport or high school season, out of their club season, they're not passionate about it. So it's a bummer as a high school coach, a strength coach, to see these kids and they get to their season and they're not too excited about it. I just remember back in the day, that's all I looked forward to was my high school season. And it's just so different. So
Sure. Well, and I think so much of that, and Bobby touched on several good points. I think one that our coaches, and this is where we do free clinics all the time. I do these set up for you because, with my time, it allows me to go out and do that. But mine is really educating our coaches a lot more on keeping these kids healthy. And not that these coaches don't think about it, but they're also so focused on their time, whether it's their baseball. They want to make sure they get their time for their hitting and their throwing and their fielding and learning all the things that they need to do to take extra additional work to work on prehab type mindset or getting them bodies healthy to handle it. They're dropping the ball with that a lot. So we want to make sure our parents and coaches know, man, you've got a resource here that can set up for it. Or if you're not in our area, there are people around. We put you in groups to help you find those things. And there's nothing wrong with those coaches that say, okay, my main season's over. I'm going to work an off season. We're going to do some things and we're going to work a little bit more on the skills and all that's fine. But if you're not taking that extra part and helping them be healthy and get prepared for it later on, these kids are getting burned out. There is no off. So we talk about these kids with an off season, and even the multi-sport after they finish one season and bam, the next week they're right into the next. So to take that time where as a coach, you want to help build their strength and get their body prepared and build them up and get ready for it. That's why we see these kids that are ninth grade wanting to play high school football that have been doing the youth football leagues and all that, doing the other things. Well, now they're wanting to play high school ball, but they haven't had an off season to really build and work the strength and get ready for it. Well, they're 100 pounds wanting to play high school football.
They're a similar product year to year.
You've got real problems. So you've got to look at that base and what you're really trying to do. Specializing, if you want to go through it year round, you have to understand where the injuries are, what potentially is going on, what you need to be doing, cycling your workouts so that you're not doing all the hours. I think of our gymnasts, for example. Holy cow, the amount of hours they train daily and weekly, and very little of that time is working on mobility and getting them ready. They're flexible, but they often can't handle the stress of it. They're banged up.
Stable, yeah.
Yeah, you get your guy
Overly
already
flexible.
as a sophomore that banged up walking around with his knees. He's going to have knees like I am later if he doesn't take that time to recover. And that's part of his recovering. They're working so hard, they're studying, they're going through everything else. Now they're not getting enough sleep at night. They're not eating right. They're not hydrated. So their body can't recover and repair. So they're beat up. So we want you to think about some basic things. And I'm going to put the links for these articles because they are really good at raising awareness that our volleyball players, a number of ACL injuries have gone through the roof. They're going crazy. Our baseball players with their elbow and shoulder problems that we never used to have problems going on. So it doesn't mean you can't do it year round, but you need to focus on the why. And the thing that bothered me out of these 3 articles that were put out, not one of them mentioned the idea of strength training and preparation and prehab type mindset to condition them to get ready. It just said we shouldn't do year-round training. We need to do multi-sports. I can tell you after 30 years, talking to these parents that do focus on one sport year-round, the likelihood of changing their mindset and getting them into playing different sports is pretty slim to none.
It's tough.
I've gotten through to reach some, but most of them understand. They're saying, look, but that high school coach, unless we work with them in their off season or we're doing this and there, they're not going to be on the team. Again, that's part of what you have to say, but that's also a job of a parent to say, well, you know what? I'm more concerned with my kid being healthy because what are the chances they're going to be playing pro anyway? So let's keep them healthy and figure that out. So that is the job of the parent to say, let's meet the coaches. Let's find out what their philosophy is, what they're trying to do. And then you've got to make that their goal is to keep those kids healthy. Those are your kids. You want them healthy. And it bothers me through all the years of training. I've met some great parents. We've had some good ones, but I could tell you in the 15,000 athletes I've worked with all these years, I didn't meet every one of those parents. And it surprised me because every sport that our kids took part in, we met the coaches, we talked with the coaches, we watched practices. Maybe not every one, but we went to practices, went to games, so that we knew what was happening. There's so many of them now, they drop them off. You don't even get to meet them. They send in a check with the kids or the waiver, and that's it. And yeah, we're glad they're there because we're going to take good care of them while we're here. But how many of them don't know about the coaches or the intentions of the coaches that are working with those kids? So please, as parents, take that extra step. Take the time and find out about them. Ask your coaches, what do you guys do with testing and evaluating? See who potentially has problems with injuries, and what do you do about that part? And if they don't really know or have an answer, and if you're in our area, say, you know what, contact these guys over at Strength of America. They'll do a clinic. They'll come out and show you some things that can help you with it. Won't charge you for that at all because we want to help them get a basis of what they need to do to keep going for that. Okay. So those are some of the things that we want to do. So the articles will be there, those things. But man, as a parent, please step up, ask that part of it. Ask the questions of coach. And if the coach gets offended by the questions, that probably isn't the right coach for you. Yeah. Okay. And understand it may just been a bad day. So give them an opportunity. I mean, don't crowd on them. They're busy with the kids and everything. And you want to talk to them right now about that. Email them, call them and set up, hey, is there a time that we can talk that it works? So you're both on that same mindset. Give the coaches a break too, because they're pretty busy with things, but they'll make the time if they're in their right mindset to help those kids. Got any things for them, pointers or twistings on these specialization and getting into things? And, Bobby was, that's a big thing too. I mean, with his, once he got to the high school point, he specialized and he went to wrestling and that was his thing. And it was, in a sense, year round. He had his high school season and off season. They did freestyle. They worked some different camps and things throughout in the summer and it got him ready. But he didn't do so much of that training for wrestling that he couldn't do the lifting and the eating and hydrating and the things he needed to do to get ready. Because as a wrestler, I realized too, this changed from the time that I was a wrestler because we kept our weight down the whole time, or we'd go up and we'd go down and drop our weight crazy 10 pounds a week because we had to do this and make weight. Bobby understood that process of getting to where I didn't until my senior year, that let's lift and get strong and you are where you are. If you could eat and hydrate and do that all season long, you already have an advantage over that kid that's had to lose 10 or 15 pounds to get to that weight level. The whole season. So when he got to those, when he started out, he had to get to overtime matches, but he had the energy in there to beat kids that maybe were a little bit better on the skills because they've been wrestling longer, but he outlasted them on the mat to get to that point. So there are things and advantages to it and why we should be doing the things that we're doing. We just want to, bring this to your attention because, like I said, the ACL thing has been big for me for a lot of years, trying to keep these kids healthy. And I'm glad we're starting to see articles. One of them specifically is an HBO event that Brian Gumbel did on these knee injuries and overuse. So that'll be a part of it too. So we have those links. Please comment on any questions. Send this to your coaches, other parents. Let's keep these kids healthy and keep them going. Yeah. And I think that's the main thing is that, as a strength coach, we hear a lot about, they just can't specialize. They got to go to year round. They got to find other sports to get involved with. Well, yeah, it's not always possible to do that. So if not, let's find a right program to help them understand how to hydrate, be ready to go, supplement so that they can just accelerate in what they're doing and stay healthy in a longer period. That's our main goal.
I just keep thinking when I think of this athlete, and I know kids struggle, especially at smaller schools like mine, and some of them will go into some club because that's where they get the exposure. And if they want to have any dreams of playing in college, they have to do some of that. So sure. I get it in a sense with some of these kids who are really, truly trying to go. But I think some of these kids need to be realistic with what they're capable of, first of all. And second of all, just know that if I'm looking to make it to the college level, I need to realize if strength and conditioning is not a piece of what I'm doing, it's going to be a lot harder to attain that goal. The kids who are looking to make it to the next level in college, look at college athletics, look at the facilities, the weight rooms they have, the coaches they have. When they get there, that is a part of their culture. That's something that is expected year round. So if you're not doing it to going to college. That could even be for a coach if that's something that they're slowly starting to ask different athletes in different sports. Are you in the weight room?
Yep.
Is that something you participate in? So just know if you're looking to get into college and you're not a part of a program, first of all, to make sure that they're staying healthy with what they're doing year round. Year round that's repetitive stress. And after so many time, you're going to need new breaks. Breaks go out over time. So you just have to realize if I'm not taking care of them and maintaining them, I'm going to be injured. So that is going to be the first red flag that's going to prevent me from possibly playing in college. And injury, if they start to see injuries coming up over and over and over, they're going to say, I don't know if we want to take a chance on that kid. And second, just performance, the little extras, let's say there's a lot of great kids that are trying to compete for this spot in this college team. If they see that, you're a little quicker, or maybe there's somebody who looks at stats like vertical jumps, approach jumps, or 10 yards, or whatever it may be, they may start to nitpick at those things. So you want to make sure that kind of from a performance index, you're competing and you're strong there. So I just think that these kids need to be aware of those things, and that if they really truly are trying to go to the next level, that they need to look into first being more of a holistic approach. Don't get sucked into the, coach saying, oh, you got to do this. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen a basketball kid doing endless hours of basketball and then producing the same product. I think at some point we have to realize quality over quantity, and applying a stimulus and not just beating it to a bloody pulp. So
volume isn't always the key.
No.
More of it isn't. Now, working those free throws and spending time, you got to do those things. I mean, there's a lot of things that you do have to work it, but the endless work and your body can't handle it. That your kids, for example, in the morning, are they dragging out of bed to get going that day? Are they just skipping the meal? You're going to see warning signs that they're overtraining and having problem. And almost always, we've talked about this before, that I've never been a big thing of overtraining is because of what they're actually physically doing. It's just that they're not preparing for it enough. They're not hydrated, they're not eating, they're not sleeping. That's the first thing we take a look at. Sometimes there's coaches that are nuts and doing way crazy volume for them, and that's a big part. But almost always these kids can adapt and handle about anything if they're eating, sleeping, and hydrating the way they should be. But the coach also has to understand the volume they have with their homework and their stress of family. All of that has to be a part of it. That's why I think it's important for you as parents to make that step, meet with a coach, talk to them about things, find out what's happening, going and watching practice, kind of get an idea of what's happening so you can make better decisions to help your kids stay healthy in the sport. But check out the videos, the links that we've got, the articles. I think they're great. Please share them with your coaches and other parents so that we can keep these kids healthy. But let's look at the basics of what we're trying to do. And the first thing is we want you to ask coaches are what do we do as far as the health of the athletes? What are some of the things that you look for? Do you test them originally to see where they're at? Do you look at things, just how they move? Where are you looking at where they may be breaking down and having troubles potentially before they have a rotator cuff injury or before they blow out their knee or their back is having a problem? What are the things ahead of time they can do? And if they don't have answers to that, please reach out. We'll be glad to help any way we can to get that going, because like I said, our biggest thing is let's keep these kids healthy so they can do what they want to do. And those kids that want to play year round, if they're eating and hydrating, doing all the things they need to do and they're training properly, awesome, because the chance of injury goes down. And I think I just want to address one thing, because as we go into it, is about injury prevention. Because, Coach Clay was on before and had some good comments about it, and people have, feelings about it. Understand, when we talk injury prevention, I'm talking about those injuries that are preventable. When we talk about 70% of these 250,000 ACL injuries are from non-impact, it's how they land, deceleration, not having the stability, don't have the strength to handle it, overuse injuries because they're tired, exhausted, not training right. Those are the things that we can prevent. And somebody hits them, blows out the knee, can't do anything about that. But when it's an overuse, because that kid is pitching so many times, they're not doing any strength training at all, they're not sleeping, those are things, yes, we can prevent. So there is injury prevention, and that should be the staple of all the strength program, the conditioning that you're doing for your athletes. And if it's just about raw power, strength, and all, you're neglecting that, you're part of the problem. So we've got to make sure we're all part of this to try and get those answers to get it. It doesn't mean it has to be a soft program. Our kids come in, they work hard, and they're making great gains, but we want to make sure that they're healthy and they can withstand it. So that's the biggest thing. So understand that We want to help put that out. So please share this. Get these out to the other parents and coaches, athletes, understanding the big thing about year-round sports, yes or no. And they're, again, I'm with you either way, as long as you're doing something to help those kids stay healthy and keep a part of it. That has to be a must. So let us know how we can help. We're glad to be there. Good?
Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you a lot. Appreciate it. We'll be going to do some interviews. We've got Coach Paul Reynolds coming up with Speed World. We've got some other guys. And we're going to touch on this as well, because it's not just us seeing the problem. There's other things going on. And what do some of these other coaches do to help cut down on these injuries and help these kids that are making a decision, whether going year-round or multi-sport athletes, what we can do to help. So thanks for being a part of our family. Look forward to more videos coming your way. You guys have a fantastic day.
See you later.
Thanks.